The lockdown drill wasn't supposed to happen that day. At least, that's what everyone believed. It was a normal Tuesday morning at Westbridge High School. The kind of day where nothing unusual ever happened. Students chatting, lockers slamming, teachers rushing through hallways with coffee in hand. Ayan sat in the back of his classroom, half listening to the lecture while doodling in his notebook. The clock ticked slowly. 10:17 a.m. That's when it started. A sudden loud click echoed through the speakers. The classroom fell silent. Then the principal's voice came through the intercom. But something felt off. Attention students and staff. This is not a drill. Initiate immediate lockdown procedures. The room froze. Ayan looked around, confused. Their teacher, Miss Farah, frowned. That's strange. We weren't informed about any drill today. But protocol was protocol. She quickly locked the classroom door, turned off the lights, and pulled down the blinds. Everyone, quiet. Move to the corner. Now. Desks scraped softly as students rushed to hide. Whispers filled the air. What's happening? Is this real? Did something happen outside? Ayan's heart began to race. Something didn't feel right. Not just the announcement. The voice. It sounded like the principal. But also, not quite. Like someone trying too hard to sound like him. Minutes passed. Or maybe longer. Time felt distorted. The silence was unbearable. Then, the intercom turned on again. A burst of static. Then, students, if you can hear this, the threat is inside the building. Gasps filled the room. Miss Farah shook her head immediately. No, that's not standard protocol. They would never say that over the intercom. Ayan felt a chill crawl up his spine. Inside the building. That didn't make sense. Unless, thud, something hit the classroom door from the outside. Everyone jumped. A girl let out a muffled scream before covering her mouth. Silence again. Then, slow, dragging footsteps. Right outside the door. Ayan stopped breathing. The handle moved slightly, but it didn't open. Just a slow, deliberate movement, like something testing it. Miss Farah whispered, "Everyone stay absolutely quiet. Don't move." The footsteps stopped, then moved away, one step at a time. Dragging, heavy, unnatural. Ayan leaned slightly toward the small glass panel on the door. He shouldn't have looked, but he did. At first, nothing, just the empty hallway. Then, something moved at the far end. A figure, tall, standing completely still, facing their classroom. Too still. Not human still. Something else. The intercom clicked again, this time louder, closer, almost like it was inside the room. Open the door. Ayan's blood ran cold. That wasn't the principal. That wasn't even human. The voice glitched, layered, like multiple voices speaking at once. Open the door, Miss Farah whispered sharply. Do not listen to that. But then, something impossible happened. A phone rang. Inside the classroom. Everyone turned. It was Bilal's phone. He stared at the screen, confused, then terrified. He showed it to Ayan. The caller ID read, "School office." Bilal's hands trembled as the phone continued ringing. No one moved. No one breathed. The sound felt too loud in the silent room. Miss Farah whispered urgently, "Don't answer it." But the phone kept ringing, and ringing, and ringing, until suddenly, it stopped. For a moment, there was nothing, just silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Then, the intercom turned on again. But this time, the voice was different. Clear, calm, normal. It was the actual principal. "Attention, all classrooms. Remain in lockdown. Authorities are on their way. Do not respond to any unauthorized announcements." Ayan felt a small sense of relief. Finally, something real, something normal. But then, Bilal's phone vibrated again. This time, a message from the same number. He slowly opened it, and his face drained of color. Ayan leaned closer. The message read, "He's not the real one." A cold wave of fear spread through the room. If that wasn't the real principal, then who just spoke? And worse, who was using the intercom before? Suddenly, bang! A loud crash echoed from somewhere down the hallway, followed by screams. Real screams. Students, running, crying. Then abruptly, silence again. Ayan couldn't take it anymore. He slowly crawled toward the door again, ignoring Miss Farah's warning. He looked through the glass panel. The hallway was no longer empty. There were lockers slightly open, papers scattered, chairs knocked over, like something had passed through, something violent. Then he saw it again, the figure, closer this time, standing right outside another classroom. Its head tilted unnaturally to one side, listening, and then it spoke, but not with its mouth. The sound came from the hallway speakers. "I know you're hiding." Ion froze. The figure slowly turned its head, directly toward their classroom. "I can hear your heartbeats." The classroom erupted into silent panic. Tears, shaking, muffled sobs. Miss Farah whispered, "Everyone stay down. It can't come in if we don't open the door." But then, a soft click echoed from inside the classroom. Everyone turned, slowly, toward the door. The lock was moving by itself. Ion's heart stopped. And then, the intercom whispered one final time, right next to them, not from the speaker, but from inside the room. The first lockdown ended at 11:42 a.m. At least, that's what everyone believed. Students slowly came out of hiding. Teachers unlocked doors. Whispers filled the hallways again. Relief spread through the building. It was just a false alarm. Probably a system glitch. Someone must have hacked the intercom. That's what they kept telling each other, trying to convince themselves. Hassan stepped out of his classroom, his legs still shaky. He hated lockdown drills. But this one felt different. Too real. Too wrong. The hallway looked disturbed. Lockers slightly open. Papers on the floor. A chair lying on its side. But no one questioned it too much. Probably students panicking, someone said. Then came the announcement. Clear. Official. Normal. All students and staff. The situation has been resolved. Lockdown is now lifted. Please return to your normal schedule. A wave of relief. Students started laughing again. Phones came out. Everything slowly went back to normal. But Hassan noticed something strange. One classroom door, still closed. Room 214. He walked closer, knocked lightly. No answer. Maybe they didn't hear the announcement. He reached for the handle and slowly opened the door. Inside, it was dark. Too dark. The lights were off. Blinds still down. Students were sitting in the corner, exactly as they were during lockdown. Not moving. Not speaking. "Hello. It's over. You can come out." No response. Hassan stepped inside. His chest tightened. Something was wrong. Very wrong. One of the students slowly turned their head toward him, their face pale, eyes wide. And then, in a barely audible whisper, they said, "Why did you open the door?" Hassan froze. "What do you mean?" The lockdown ended. The students shook their heads slowly, tears forming. No, it didn't. Suddenly, the intercom clicked again. But this time, the voice was rushed, panicked, not calm like before. "Attention. This is an emergency. The lockdown is still active. Do not leave your classrooms. I repeat, do not leave your classrooms." The hallway outside exploded into chaos. Students screaming, running, doors slamming shut again. Hassan's heart dropped. 2 announcements. 2 different messages. One of them was lying. Behind him, the classroom door slowly creaked shut. Click. Lock. The students in the corner began to panic quietly. "Did it follow you?" someone whispered. Hassan turned slowly. "What?" Another student spoke, shaking uncontrollably. The thing that makes the announcements. A cold silence filled the room. Then, from the hallway, came a voice. Hassan's voice, perfectly mimicked. "Hey guys, it's safe now. You can come out." Hassan's blood turned to ice. That's not me." The students backed away from the door, crying silently. The voice repeated, closer this time. "Open the door. It's me." Then, a soft knock. 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 Hassan slowly stepped back. The voice changed, glitched, distorted. "Why won't you let me in?" The door handle jerked violently. Once, twice, then stopped. Silence. Until a phone vibrated on the floor. Hassan looked down. It wasn't his. It didn't belong to anyone in the room. The screen lit up. Incoming call. Hassan. No one moved. No one dared to even breathe. The phone kept vibrating against the floor. Buzz. 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 Hassan stared at it, his own name glowing on the screen. Calling from nowhere. Don't answer it, someone whispered. But the phone stopped on its own. For a moment, there was relief. Then, it rang again, this time louder, more aggressive. Buzz. 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 Hassan slowly bent down, his hand shaking. He didn't want to touch it, but something about it felt important. The screen flickered. The name changed. Incoming call. Inside, a girl let out a quiet sob. Make it stop. Please make it stop. Hassan picked it up, against every instinct, and answered. Silence. Then, breathing. Slow, uneven, wet. Hassan's voice came through the phone. But it wasn't him. You shouldn't have opened the door. The call ended instantly. At that exact moment, the classroom lights flickered. Once, twice, then turned on. Everyone screamed, because now, they could see clearly. The classroom was not empty before. It just didn't want to be seen. Something was standing in the corner, right where the darkness had been thickest. Tall, unnaturally thin, its limbs too long, bent in the wrong directions. And its face was Hassan's face, but stretched, twisted, smiling too wide. The real Hassan stumbled backward. No, that's not. The thing tilted its head and spoke, using his exact voice. You let me in. The door behind them suddenly unlocked. Click. Slowly, it creaked open on its own. The hallway outside was empty, but the intercom came alive one last time. Lockdown failed. The creature took a step forward. The students scream. His eyes were fixed on the attendance sheet, still lying on the teacher's desk, even in the dim light. He could see it. That name, Samir Khan. Something about it felt wrong. Not just unfamiliar, but unnatural, like it didn't belong to the world around it. Then, a soft sound from the back of the classroom. A chair creaking. Everyone froze. Who moved? Someone whispered. No one. Adil slowly turned his head. The last row. There was someone sitting there. A silhouette, barely visible in the darkness. His heart stopped. That seat had been empty before. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just sat there. Then, Miss Hina's voice trembled. Everyone, stay where you are. But it was too late, because the figure slowly raised its head, and in a voice that sounded dry, distant, it answered. Present. No one breathed. No one moved. The word echoed in the darkness. Present. Miss Hina's hand began to shake. The attendance sheet slipped from her fingers and fell to the floor. Adil's heart pounded violently in his chest. That voice. It didn't sound human. It sounded like something trying to remember how to speak. Slowly, very slowly, the classroom lights flickered once. For a split second, the room lit up, and everyone saw it. The figure in the last row. A boy, wearing the same school uniform. But something was horribly wrong. His face. It was blurred. Not invisible. Not hidden. Just wrong. Like it didn't fully exist. Then the lights went out again. Screams were barely held back. Don't look at it, someone whispered. But it was too late. Everyone had seen it. And now, it knew. The intercom crackled again. But this time, there was no announcement. Just whispering. Dozens of voices, layered together. Present. 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 Adil covered his ears. Make it stop. A girl cried softly. Then suddenly, silence. Complete silence. Until the teacher's desk creaked. Miss Hina slowly looked down. The attendance sheet had moved. It was now open again. But something had changed. A new column had appeared, next to each student's name. A single word written beside some of them. Present. But not all. Adil leaned closer. His name was there, but next to it, the space was empty. He felt his stomach drop. Ma'am, what does that mean? He whispered. Miss Hina didn't answer. She couldn't, because slowly, one by one, the empty spaces began to fill, as if something invisible was writing. Ink appearing on its own. Present. Another name. Present. Another. Students began crying silently. And then, the last row chair creaked again. The figure stood up, slowly, unnaturally, its head tilted toward Adil. And then, it spoke again, this time clearer. Closer. You're absent. Adil felt his vision blur. "What?" he whispered. The thing took a step forward. "You shouldn't be here." The classroom door suddenly unlocked. Click. It slowly opened by itself. The hallway outside was completely dark, not just unlit, but empty, endless, like it didn't lead anywhere anymore. The intercom came alive one final time. In a cold, emotionless voice, "All absent students, please leave the classroom." Adil's body moved before his mind could react. He stood up. No, I don't want to go." But his legs kept moving, step by step, toward the door. The other students watched in horror. No one could help him. No one could move. As he reached the doorway, he turned back one last time. The figure was sitting in his seat now, smiling. Attendance complete. The door slammed shut behind him, and Adil was gone. The next morning, Miss Hina took attendance again, her voice slightly shaky. "Ollie, present. Zara, here. Danish. Yes, ma'am." She paused, then continued. "Samir." A voice from the back answered. "Present." And right below that name, a new one had been added. Adil, marked clearly, "Absent." The rule was simple. During lockdown, no one speaks. No one moves. No one makes a sound. At first, it sounded like every other safety instruction. Just another drill. Just another boring routine. Until the note appeared. It was taped to the classroom door. No one saw who put it there. No one heard anything. Miss Sana noticed it only after locking the door. A small piece of paper. White. Plain. With just a few words written in black ink. She read it quietly. Then her face changed. "What does it say?" a student whispered. Miss Sana hesitated, then answered softly. "It says, 'Do not make any noise, no matter what you hear.'" A few students nervously laughed. "That's creepy. Probably someone trying to scare us." But Ariba didn't laugh, because she had already noticed something else. The classroom clock. It had stopped. 11:03 a.m. The second hand wasn't moving, not even slightly. She frowned. "That's weird." Then, the intercom clicked. Everyone froze. A voice came through, but it wasn't an announcement. It was whispering. Soft. Close. Like someone standing right behind them. "Don't make a sound." Ariba's breath caught in her throat. The same words. From the note. Miss Sana quickly turned off the lights. "Everyone. Corner. Now." Students moved quickly. Silently. The room fell into darkness. Complete silence. Minutes passed. Or maybe longer. Time didn't feel normal anymore. Then, a sound. Very faint. From the hallway. Footsteps. Slow. Dragging. Like something was walking. But not properly. Ariba squeezed her eyes shut. "Don't make a sound." The footsteps stopped. Right outside the door. Silence. Then, a knock. Soft at first. Knock. No one reacted. Another knock. Louder this time. Knock. Knock. Ariba's heart pounded. Then a voice came from outside. Crying. A student's voice. "Please. Open the door. I'm scared." A girl inside the classroom gasped quietly. "That's Hiba. That's her voice." Miss Sana shook her head immediately, silently signaling, "No." The voice outside continued. "Please. It's coming. Please let me in." Tears rolled down Ariba's face. Every instinct told her to help. But the rule, do not make a sound. The knocking became desperate. Bang, bang, bang. "Open the door, please." Then suddenly, silence. Complete silence. Ariba slowly exhaled. Maybe it left. Maybe it was over. Then, something impossible happened. The voice came again. But this time, from inside the classroom. Right behind them. "Why didn't you help me?" No one turned around. No one dared to move. Because they all knew. Whatever was behind them wasn't supposed to be there. Ariba's entire body went cold. She could feel it. Standing somewhere in the darkness. Too close. Breathing. Slow. Uneven. Right behind the group. Miss Sana's hand trembled as she gestured again. "Don't move. Don't speak." The rule still mattered. It had to. Then, a soft sound. A chair creaking. Someone shifted slightly. Just a tiny movement. Barely noticeable. But it was enough, because instantly, the breathing stopped. And then, a whisper. Right next to that student's ear. "I heard that." The student froze. Tears streamed down her face. She tried to stay silent, tried not to react, but fear took over. A small sob escaped her lips, and that was it. A sudden violent movement, a blur in the darkness. A muffled scream cut off instantly. Then silence again. Heavy, terrifying. No one dared to look. No one dared to breathe too loudly. Minutes passed, or hours. Time didn't exist anymore. Only the rule: do not make a sound. Ariba felt something warm on her hand. She looked down slowly. Even in the darkness, she could tell. It was blood. Fresh. Her vision blurred with tears. But she stayed silent. She had to. They all did. Then, the intercom clicked again. A normal voice this time. Calm. Attention. Lockdown is now over. You may resume normal activity. Relief washed over the room. Finally, it was over. Ariba slowly stood up, her legs weak. Miss Sana hesitated, but then nodded. It's safe now. Students began to move, some crying, some shaking. Ariba turned toward the door and opened it. The hallway looked normal. Too normal. Bright lights, clean floors. No sign of anything wrong. See, it's over, someone said weakly. But something didn't feel right. Ariba turned back toward the classroom, and that's when she noticed the silence. It was still there, not outside, inside the classroom. She frowned. Why is it so quiet? Then she realized no one was speaking, not a single student, not even whispers, just empty silence. She looked at Miss Sana. Ma'am. No response. Miss Sana was staring at her, wide eyes, mouth slightly open, trying to speak, but no sound came out. Ariba's heart dropped. She turned to the others. Same thing. Everyone was trying to talk, but nothing came out, not even a whisper. Then slowly, no one talks about Building C anymore. Not even the teachers, not even the old staff. It's like it was erased from memory, but it still exists. At least, that's what Hamza found out. He was a new transfer student. Westbridge High School. Normal school. Normal rules. Nothing unusual. At least on paper. On his first day, he noticed something strange. There were only two buildings, A and B. But the map at the entrance clearly showed a third. Building C. He asked another student. Where is Building C? The boy looked at him, confused, then uncomfortable. There is no Building C, he said quickly, then walked away. Hamza frowned, but he had seen it. From the window, a long corridor connecting to a dark structure, behind the main school. That evening, he stayed back after class, pretending to finish homework, waiting until the bell rang. Everyone left. Teachers locked classrooms. The school became quiet. Then, something changed. The hallway lights flickered. Once, twice, then stayed on. Hamza slowly walked toward the back exit. And there it was. A door. Metal. Old. Covered partially by shadows. Above it, a faded sign. Building C. His heartbeat rose. The door should not have been there. But it was. He pushed it. It opened. No lock. No resistance. Just silence waiting inside. The moment Hamza stepped in, everything changed. The sound outside disappeared. No birds. No wind. No distant traffic. Just absolute silence. The corridor stretched endlessly. Too long for the school's size. Walls old, peeling, lights flickering randomly. Names were written on the walls. Scratched, repeated. Some familiar, some not. Then he saw something that made him stop. A classroom door, opened slightly, light coming from inside. He stepped closer. Inside, there were desks. Students sitting, all silent, all staring forward. A teacher stood at the board, writing something. Hamza whispered, "Hello." No response. He stepped inside. The teacher slowly turned. Her face was pale, eyes lifeless. And she spoke. "You're late." Hamza froze. "I don't have a class here. I think I got lost." The teacher didn't react. She just pointed at the board. Hamza looked. Written in chalk. "Welcome to Building C." Under it, a list of names. Students, teachers, staff, and at the bottom, a blank space, with his name slowly appearing, as if being written right now. Hamza backed away. No, I don't belong here." The lights flickered. Once, twice, When they stabilized, the classroom door was closed. And now, Hamza was sitting at a desk. He hadn't moved, he hadn't walked, but he was there, surrounded by silent students, all staring forward. Then the teacher spoke again, calmly. First lesson, attendance. Hamza couldn't move. His body wasn't responding, like something else was controlling it. The teacher picked up a register, slowly, started calling names. Each name was answered, without voice, without sound, just a slight movement, a nod. Then she reached a name, a pause, and then, Hamza. His head turned slightly, against his will, a nod. The teacher smiled. Good, all present. Hamza wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The teacher wrote something on the board. New text appeared. Lesson complete. Then, everything went dark. For a moment, no sound, no sight, no feeling. Then, Hamza opened his eyes. He was outside the school. Morning, normal world, birds chirping, students arriving. He stood there, confused, shaking. Was it a dream? He whispered. He turned back. The school looked normal. A and B buildings. Students laughing. Everything fine. No building C. He exhaled, relief. Then he walked toward the gate. But as he passed the school board, he stopped. Because something was written there. Something new, not part of the official sign. Scratched into the metal. Fresh. Welcome back, Hamza. He froze. Slowly turned around. The school gate was open, even though it was locked a moment ago. And inside, far in the distance, Building C stood again. But this time, the lights were on, and at every window, students were watching him, silent, smiling, waiting. Hamza tried to run, but his feet didn't move. His body turned, slowly, against his will, back toward the school, and the last thing he heard was the bell ringing for attendance.